Let's get into item 5 on the July 1st City Commission agenda. This is scheduled for the morning session beginning at 9 a.m., and it's asking the Commission to award a little over $2.1 million for the Tide Valve Stormwater Improvements Project. I actually spent quite a bit of time reading through the backup on this one because whenever we're talking about a multi-million-dollar contract, I want to understand exactly what's being built, how it's being paid for, and how the contractor was selected. And overall, I think this is a great project. Now, if you've lived in Key West for any amount of time, I don't have to explain why stormwater infrastructure is so important. We all know. We've all watched roads flood and dealt with king tides, and we've all had that moment where you're checking the weather and the tide chart at the same time. This project is one piece of addressing that. The city is proposing to install or replace tide valves at 17 stormwater outfalls around Key West. They're also adding sediment removal structures at locations that don't already have them. The tide valves are there to help reduce seawater backing up into the stormwater system during high tides, and the sediment structures improve water quality by capturing debris before it leaves the system. Now, one thing I always want to know is where these projects are happening. According to the bid documents, the work includes locations on Fort Street, Green Street, Jose Marti Drive, George Street, 4th Street, 6th Street and Patterson Avenue, 10th Street by Winn-Dixie, 11th Street and Riviera, Kennedy Drive, 17th Street, 18th Street, 19th Street, Venetian Drive, Jamaica Drive, Bahama Drive, and Linda Avenue. So many areas of District 4. So this isn't just one neighborhood getting attention while another doesn't. These improvements are spread throughout the city where engineers have identified problem outfalls. The next thing I looked at was funding. This project is being paid for through a Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Grant. The city previously accepted up to $3.1 million for this project, and according to the staff memo, there isn't a required city match. I like that. If we can bring outside grant dollars in to improve the infrastructure we already know we need, that's smart. Now, let's talk about the bid itself. There were only 2 responsive bids. Charlie Tapino and Sons submitted a bid of $2.146 million, and Reynolds Construction submitted a bid of right around $4 million. When I first saw that, I honestly thought, okay, what's going on here? Because that's almost double. So I went through the bid comparison line by line. I expected to find one major disagreement, maybe like one difficult location or one expensive structure. That's not what I found. The pricing is consistently different throughout the project. At Jose Marti Drive, Tapino's price is about $182,000, while Reynolds is around $550,000. George Street, about $220,000 compared to $620,000. 10th Street near Winn-Dixie, about $160,000 compared to $430,000. And that pattern continues through most of the locations. So based on the documents, this isn't one company forgetting a line item. These are simply 2 contractors who priced the project very differently. Then I kept reading. There was quite a bit of correspondence between Reynolds and the city during the bidding process. Reynolds submitted a number of technical questions about the plans and specifications. Toward the end of the process, they asked the city to reopen the question period and extend the bid opening by 1 week because they realized they had misunderstood one of the addenda. The city declined. The city's explanation was that the question period had already closed, answers had already been issued, and extending the schedule at that point wouldn't be fair to everyone participating in the procurement. Reading through all 8 documents, I don't see anything that immediately suggests the procurement process itself was improper. But I do think this is exactly where commissioners should ask staff to walk everyone through the process publicly. How many companies downloaded the bid package? How many attended any pre-bid meetings? Why did only 2 companies ultimately submit responsive bids? Is there anything the city can do in future procurements to encourage more competition? Those aren't accusations. They're transparency. When we're spending $2 million in public money, explaining the process builds confidence. even when everything was done correctly. The other thing I kept thinking about while I was reading this had nothing to do with bids. It has to do with the people who live near the projects. If you're on one of these streets, construction will affect your day. It affects parking and traffic and access to your driveway and noise, your morning routine. And I don't think that residents should have to find out construction is starting because they wake up one morning and see equipment outside. As commissioner, I'd push for direct mail notices to every resident and business affected by projects like this. A simple postcard. Here's what's being built, here's why, here's when construction is expected to begin, here's how long we think it'll last, here's who to contact if you have questions. Not everyone follows city government online. Not everyone watches commission meetings. But everyone deserves to know what's happening on their own street. I'd also like to see interactive maps and project updates on the city's website so residents can easily check the status if schedules change. To me, communication is part of the project. Overall, I think this is a worthwhile investment. Flooding isn't going away, and these kinds of infrastructure improvements are one piece of making Key West more resilient. At the same time, I think we should always expect transparency when awarding major public contracts and clear communication with the neighbors affected by the work. The more people understand what's happening, the better this city works. That's the kind of leadership that I believe in, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to make sure you have what you need to be a part of the decision. If you have questions or comments on this item, it's scheduled for the morning session beginning at 9 a.m. on July 1st. And I encourage you to tune in or participate because these decisions affect all of us. And the more voices involved, the stronger our community will be.